like to watch the replay. We're getting a lot of new faces and a lot of you reaching out saying that you can't join us live, but you like the replay and to keep it up. So in case you did not hear, on August the 26th, I will be doing a totally free class on how to protect your energy. It's going to teach you how to protect yourself from negative people, from negative situations and circumstances, protect you from yourself. So, how can you develop a more positive attitude in a realistic and practical way? And then, not only that, but learning how to enact some boundaries in our life, because a lot of the times, the reason why we are taking on this energy from other people or other places is because we don't understand how to properly protect our own energy. So, that class will be on the 26th at 7:30 p.m. Totally free. You can either DM me if you want the link to sign up, or you can text the word mastery to this phone number. The phone number is 833-231-4407. Again, that number is 833-231-4407. If you are on Facebook, if I'm looking here, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, I cannot see you unless you comment. So I would love it if you would participate. All right, so we're going to get started. We're moving into chapter 3 for today because I feel like we had the gist of what he was talking about in chapter 2. For those of you that don't know, we're doing a book study on the power of now. In this particular version of the book, I'm on page 47. And so we talked about how yesterday we let our pain body run the show. And because we let pain run the show, pain likes to feed on other pain. And so what can happen if you don't learn how to emotionally be in tune with yourself so that you can nip it in the bud if you get triggered, this pain body will continue to think in a certain way and have you feeling a certain way so that the negativity perpetuates. So what was probably at first maybe boredom or irritation or frustration starts to turn into depression. And then, when it gets really out of control, then we end up harming ourselves all for the sake of this pain body. And so again, he was talking about the way out of being trapped by this pain body was to recognize that it's not who you truly are. Because if you can observe your feelings and emotions, much like you can observe your thoughts, which we learned in the first chapter, then you are able to see that a lot of the pain that you are feeling or a lot of emotions that you are feeling are not even really who you are. Because if you can look at the emotions in that state of being, or what he calls the presence or the moment of now, then what you actually are is an observer. And again, if you are an observer of how you think and how you feel, then those are not really who you are, which is what we've been taught to identify ourselves with for a very long time. And once you can start to grasp this, you will start to live life more free of the suffering that we perpetuate. So when we move into chapter 3, we're going to be talking about time. We're going to learn more about the now and how powerful it is to help us free ourselves from that cycle of negativity, the negative self-talk, the negative patterns that we experience from year to year, and actually start to break free of those things and what it takes to actually do that. So he said, the problems of the mind cannot be solved on the level of the mind. This is important because even when you are listening to me give you my interpretation of what he's talking about in this book, a lot of you are going to try to intellectualize what he's saying. And if you continue to intellectualize, what you are doing again is using your mind, maybe not in the most optimal case in this situation, because it's more of a feeling. When you are who you are truly meant to be, we'll just call it your soul, because I think a lot of us can understand that. When you are in touch with your soul and who you really are, you are in this space of being. And the mind can't always understand what being in your soul feels like or looks like or whatever. So it tries to rationalize something that's very hard to rationalize. So these problems of the mind, trying to be conscious and do all these things around your thoughts and your feelings, cannot be understood on the level of the mind. He also states that once you know how basic dysfunction operates, this is, and I got something to say about coaching too when I read this part. once you know how basic dysfunction operates, which you've learned in chapter 1 and chapter 2, that the source of a lot of suffering that we have is based on the way that we have identified ourselves based on the thoughts and the feelings that we're having about a certain situation, a person, whatever it could be. But once you understand how this truly works, there is no need to explore all the countless manifestations, no need to make it into a complex personal problem. This is why he says that the ego loves that. It likes to attach to another label, another sense of identity. And I think I talked about this maybe yesterday or I don't know, the day before, about how we like to attach to a label, right? We like to attach our identity to the fact that instead of us having a painful experience, we are depressed. Totally different, right? Even the way that you define the things that you're going through. Again, not minimizing, but I just want you to think about it a different way. Let's say you are a survivor of something traumatic. Being a survivor versus being someone that came out of the other end of something. Totally different, because your identity is now tied to the fact that something traumatic has happened to you and you have made it out the other side. I know for practical earth purposes, this is the world that we live in and this is how we choose to define ourselves. But when you start to define yourself by experiences, by thoughts, by labels, and then start to label yourself by these complex problems and make them more personal than they need to be, because, and when I think what he's saying when he says personal, and what I'm trying to say too, and maybe not so eloquently, is that when you make them personal and make them a part of your identity, that is when you start to get into trouble. It's not denying that certain things have happened to you, but it's how you allow them to shape and define who you are as a person that gets a lot of people into trouble. And the ego loves that. And the ego likes to attach to problems and feed problems and give you the illusion that now you have another label that you could put on yourself in order for you to not be able to experience your being fully. A lot of us, I grew up in a single family home. I didn't go to school. I don't have enough money. All of these are certain things and instances that we put upon ourselves as part of our identity, rather than observing them for like it is what it is, right? But it doesn't have to define you. So he said, this is why for so many people, a large part of their sense of self is intimately connected with their problems. How many of you can honestly take a look at your life, especially the impactful, the emotional things, the traumatic things that happen to you, and say with all honesty that you have not allowed those things to define you? I bet a lot of you have, right? And again, a lot of your suffering is because you are intimately connected with your problems. And the last thing you want to do, if you grew up in that single family home, or if you had these struggles that you had to overcome and go through, and you made them a part of your identity, whether you know it or not, consciously or unconsciously, it's hard for you to want to get rid of that, because you can feel a tremendous loss when you start to give up the things that you have identified with yourself. So I'll give you an instance, and you guys already know this story, right? But in America, this is what we're taught. We go to school, we get a good job, we get married, we have the kids, we crush the career, we do all of the things. And those tend to be how we identify ourselves. And those also tend to be things that we measure our success with, right? But you guys know that in a matter of an instant, everything that I had defined myself on, the house, the job, the career, the marriage, was gone in an instant. And guess what? It made me feel lost. I did not know who I was, because I had chosen to make these things a part of who I was. And so when that stuff got stripped away, I had to really think about, well, hey, well, who am I if that stuff is not there? And it was a powerful lesson because it taught me that even though all of those things got stripped away, obviously me, the true me and my being was still there. So those were not things that identified me or that were a part of my identity. Those were false pieces of my identity that I chose to make a part of me, to the point where I didn't know who I was without those things. And I think that that's what he's trying to say. He's not trying to minimize the fact that we are these spiritual beings in a human experience, but it's how do you let these things define you? And once you let something define you, think about how hard it is to let go of something. We know women every day, and some of you may be in a situation, you're in a relationship that you know is not good for you, but part of the label is tied up in being in this relationship. And so, even though you know deep down in your heart you're not in a situation that you need to be in, because you have identified a part of yourself as a person in this relationship, think about how hard it is for you to give up on that piece of your identity, even if when you step back and observe what it is that you're going through, if you can observe it, it's not part of your identity. Demeka said, I agreed. I have that one on point. A lot of people do. Even I did. That was probably the most traumatic thing for me. And I feel like a lot of people, when they experience things like divorce, because like he said, you base your identity on these certain things and then it's hard for you to let go of. I think that a lot of people know, they know that the divorce is probably the best thing for them, but they will fight to give up that identity. You to have to give up that identity. They will go to court. They will spend all their money. They will turn dirty so they don't have to give up a part of how they have defined themselves. So just think about how strong a power that you identifying with these certain things has over your life. So once you recognize the root of the unconsciousness as identification with the mind. So when you understand that a lot of the autopilot that you're doing, asleep at the wheel, thinking the same thoughts every day, living the same month, the same year after year, once you start to recognize that the root cause of it is, we talked about the thoughts, you identifying with the mind, even though it's not you, or you identifying with the emotions, which is also not you, you step out of it. And when you can step out of the emotions and the thoughts, then you start to become more present. And when you become more present, you can allow the mind to be as it is without getting entangled in it. And if you can use your mind as a tool from that space where you are not entangled with it, it is a process that you can observe and use it when you need to use it, as well as your feelings and emotions. Ladies in the Personal Mastery membership, you know how to use your emotions now, what they're for, to help you level up. When you can use these things for what they're for, they're not dysfunctional anymore because you can step outside of them, but you can use them as a wonderful tool. Let's see. Demeka said they know, but if they admit it, they have to do something about it, right? And it wouldn't be so hard, I guess, right? If we didn't say that part of our identity was tied up in being a wife or a mother or whoever we are, a girlfriend or a boyfriend, instead of a person that's in a relationship having an experience, but that's not who we are. We're still ourselves. We just happen to be in a relationship, playing our wife role, doing all of the things. And I think that because we don't want to give up that ego label, we will just hold on tight and be in these dysfunctional situations we shouldn't be in. Let's see. To be identified with your mind is to be trapped in time. And we talked a little bit about this maybe a couple of days ago, but he reiterates this piece for you to understand what the present is. To be identified with your mind is to be trapped in time. The compulsion to live almost exclusively through memory and anticipation. So what this does in your life, in my life, is create this endless preoccupation with the past and the future, while at the same time being unwilling to acknowledge the present moment and allow it to be. This is powerful because I'm going to talk about something that you may have to listen to a couple of times, especially if I can't explain it right, or if he didn't explain it in a way that resonates with you, because this is going to be deep. So listen up. This is it. Nothing ever happened in the past. It happened in the now. Nothing will ever happen in the future. It will happen in the now. I'm going to keep reading, then I'll try to elaborate. Okay. So nothing ever happened in the past that happened in the now. Nothing will ever happen in the future. It will happen in the now. What you think of as the past is a memory trace that is stored in your mind of a former now moment. This is deep. Hold on. So when you remember the past, what you are doing is reactivating a memory trace. And when you reactivate that memory trace, you're doing it from the now. The future is an imagined now. So the future would be a projection of your mind. When the future comes, then that becomes the now. When you think about the future, you're doing it in the now. So the past and the future obviously don't have a reality of their own. He says, just as the moon has no light of its own, but it can only reflect the light of the sun. So the past and the future are only pale reflections of the light, the power, and the reality of the eternal present. Their reality is borrowed from the now. So when he's saying the reality is borrowed from the now, what I take that to mean is let's talk about this. So if we think about the past now, it wasn't the past because it's over, right? It's done. It's no longer real. In the moment that you were experiencing the past, though, it was the now, right? And then, but yet and still, we spend a lot of time letting past things rob us of being, right? Being in the present, being in the now, because we carry those memories into this moment now, and we allow them to impact us negatively. Also, there are some of us that like to live in the future. They like to plan. They like to worry. They like to have anxiety. They like to think about all the things that, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I fail? What if I can't do this? I don't have this. I don't have that. And worry about the future. The future is not real, right? Because it hasn't happened yet. It's only a projection of this tool of the mind that you are letting you run you instead of you running your mind. And so what are you doing when you are in that future state? You are robbing yourself of the only thing that is real, which is the now. All you ever have in this world is the now. And as humans, we have practically constructed time so that we can understand these memories, right? Or we can understand these projections because they do make sense in the practical world. However, for a lot of us living in these false memories, not false memories, but these false events that are not real anymore and just memories, or these projections, living from those two spaces, we don't have time to experience what is truly real, which is right now. I think that makes sense. Give me hearts, give me comments. Demeka said all we have is the now, so she gets it. So very, very powerful. And so as we close off this discussion going into chapter 3, like we talked about, I just want to reiterate how we can pull ourselves back into the power of the now, the thing that is only real. And that is to be present as the watcher of the mind. I'm going to keep saying this repeatedly because in my coaching program, I call it something different. But I think a lot of teachers and mentors that embrace spirituality into their practice of doing this mindset work for their clients, we all have this space where we may call it different things, but what we're trying to get you to do is live in this now moment, or this present moment, or this center screen, or this centeredness or groundedness, because again, this is where the magic happens. However, people will often say that they understand. However, as soon as we turn off this live, you're going to go back to thinking the same way, living the same way. And so you're going to be disconnected from the true power of who you are as a being. And so I like that he repeats this over and over again. And with the repetition, hopefully it'll help instill these values, these things in you, because this is truly where you're going to find freedom and find the least amount of suffering as you move through life, is to be in the now, be in the moment, and be in your being, not your false being with your mind and your emotions, but your true being of who you are as a soul, being in that place as much as you can in everything that you do in your life. Not just when you want to be spiritual or pray or pick up the tarot cards or do whatever it is that you do, that you say is your spiritual practice. It's not the things that you do, it's the way that you live your life. And if you are not living your life as a being and in the now, you're missing out on your power. And until you can, tap into this power as much as possible, and it's a conscious, it's really like, literally, I have my clients, I have a little tool that they use so that they know that they need to snap out of it. They need to wake up. They need to be present. They need to be in this centeredness in order for them to be in their power. So I just wanted to let you guys know that as well. And to make it sound hard to accept, but definitely relatable. It is hard to accept because we've been taught so much to identify with this time and think that we're in our fields and our mind is OCD or running the show. And in all actuality, we can't blame any of those things that we're experiencing on our mind or our emotions. We need to blame it on the fact that we've allowed these things to take control of us and control the puppet strings of who we are as a true being. And once you can start to wake up to who it is that you really are and live life more consciously, you're going to start to understand that a lot of the things that you're bringing into this present moment of now do not have to be there. And even if they are, you're able to transcend out of them. And so this last paragraph for today is going to sum it all up, so that you have some food for thought to think about. So again, he said, be present as the watcher of your mind, of your thoughts and emotions, as well as your reactions in various situations. Be at least as interested. This is important, because then another thing that we've been taught, well, if we don't like something about our life, then it must be a person, it must be a situation outside of ourselves. And we spend a lot of time ruminating over, why did he do this? Why did she do this? Why did this happen? Or again, the future, the projections. But be at least as interested in your reactions as in the situation or the person that causes you to react. Notice also how often your attention is in the past or the future. Don't judge it or analyze what you observe. Just watch it. Watch your thoughts, feel your emotions, and observe the reaction. Don't make it a personal problem, though. We do that. We slap a label on it, make it a personal problem, and guess what we're doing? We ruminating in this space of spiraling with the pain body, because now they said this to us and this triggered what happened to me in the past, and then my mama did this to me. And no, and that's kind of what that's why when I work with clients, I'm much more solution oriented, because all of that stuff, it sucks, but you can't change it. So how can we take this moment and make this moment the moment that you change, so that next now and that next now and that next now is not a reflection of you pulling the past into those nows and tainting what it is that you are experiencing right there, right? So watch the thoughts, feel the emotions, observe the reactions. Do not make a personal problem out of them. And when you can do this, you will then feel something more powerful than any of those things that you observe. They start to become smaller. You start to see them from a different perspective. They start to become less painful. I mean, I kid you not. Like, when I had this thing happen to me and then I awakened, and again, awakening is moment to moment, right? Because we all slip back into the thoughts and the feelings. But my initial awakening, where I started to understand that I wasn't my thoughts, I wasn't how I identified myself, all of that. When I was able to observe, like almost, I literally just going through life, looking at my life as if I was watching a movie, a lot of the pain of losing all of the things that I lost and really truly having to start all over from the ground up, you guys, the ground up, everything that I built, I wasn't in pain. It was like a switch flipped. And it's so hard to explain to you if you still identify with your mind or your feelings. It's going to be hard for you to understand that you can get to a place in your life, this centeredness, where you don't experience, I won't say eliminate suffering, but it definitely won't impact you. It's definitely more freeing. It definitely allows you to really feel who your being is and start to step into your life with more purpose and more presence. But you have to start to disidentify with these certain things that are unconsciously ruling your life and you're just letting them. I'm going to say the last sentence again, then we'll close. You will then feel something more powerful than any of those things that you observe. The still observing presence itself behind the content of your mind, the silent watcher. I'm going to say the silent watcher, your soul, your true being. All right, let's see. Demeka said perception is everything. Perception is everything. And a lot of times, even let's just do it practically because this is a very spiritual book, but even practically, sometimes we get so caught up in what's going on inside of us or what's going on outside of us. When if we could look at things as if it was, sometimes I use the metaphor with my clients, a movie. If you looked at your life as if it was a movie, you're going to see that just as much as this person did this or caused you to do that or this situation sucks, you're going to also be able to be more honest and be more conscious about the part that you play in the dance that you are experiencing in your life, for better or for worse. So even if you don't get the spiritual part of what I'm saying, just thinking about it in that way will show you that when you pull yourself outside of it and look at it as a movie, there are so many more layers going on to the little bit that you're experiencing. The people that you interact with have their own layers. Circumstances and situations have their own layers, but we tend to define things and take things personal based on how they impact us without really taking the time to elevate our consciousness or our perception of what it is that we're experiencing. Yes, never thought about it like that. Exactly. That's why we do what we do. We help clients. So you can see it in a different way. So hopefully that's helpful. All right. So you guys know, same time, same place. Tomorrow we will be here at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Trying to think if I have anything else. For those of you that, again, are struggling with this type of thing and you want to know what it feels like to really tap into living life from your being and have the help and have the guidance and the support to allow you to do so, then this book is basically how I do my coaching. It's very solutions oriented. We don't spend a lot of time in the past because it's there, it happened, but let's move forward and let's make the future count, and let's do it from a space of being and centeredness, so you're able to feel your purpose, feel your soul, and move forward more deeply and more purposefully toward things that count, and learn to disidentify yourself with some of the things that are holding you back, so you experience true freedom and true power, to step into whatever it is that you want to do in this world, because you get to pick. All right, so I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.